We are live.
Dude, it
What's up,
feels
Kris?
creepy not to be at the bottom, man. Come on, put me at the bottom. That's where I belong. Right there. There you go. Cool.
Are you saying you're a bottom?
Holding
That's
it
how
down.
you do this? You're a bottom?
No. Vitaly's got. Carlos got to hold up Vitaly's spot.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
true.
wow.
Thank you to 73 people being here in 18 seconds. Really means the world. It's awesome. Thank you all for being here. Vitaly will not be here tonight, so the one fan of Vitaly can leave right now since he's not. No, I'm just playing. He's busy doing real life stuff while we're just yapping.
Yeah, I don't think people realize that. Admit you don't have a job. Like,
I don't have a job.
You actually have a freaking job.
You all have jobs. I have no job.
But I'm actually getting a taste of what you've got. I'm finished. This has been the most free I've had for a while, and it looks like my current my gig will get pushed back. So I've got weeks and weeks where I'm going to be chilling. It's great. It's freaking awesome.
No, dude, you got time to spend with your daughter.
It's the best. That's where I was just now. We were trying to get some food because she hasn't been eating much. So I was like, oh, let's go to Dave & Buster's. I mean, every kid's going to eat Dave & Buster's. But then we get there and there's this huge like food event happening outside, like all these the street carts and the food trucks. Oh, she loved it. It was great. I was like, man, if I didn't have to come in here and talk to you guys, I'd still be there.
Yeah.
The food trucks in LA are amazing. The tacos
they are great, dude. And it's awesome because you can follow them on Instagram, like, you know what I mean? And you know exactly where they're going to be. A lot of the places that I would work when I was working in the offices, they would have like a day of the week where they would just call a whole bunch of food trucks and everyone would just sit outside. It is a cool perk of being in LA that you can just spend so much time outside.
Yeah. Dude, you know, I've never been to California. This is the summer. This is the summer. Me and the wife, we have to. She's been saying like we want to do the Pacific Coastal Highways. I'm like, you know what? This year we'll do it. Like,
okay, we don't call it that. We call it the PCH out here.
It's like, all right, whatever, man.
It's like I don't say I'm going on the Brooklyn Queens Expressway.
The BQE, son.
Yeah, that's the BQE. It's the BQE. We used to call it the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, the Jamwick, the Battery parking lot. You know, all these terms for it.
Oh man, that's you never been to Cali? Wow,
you gotta come to Cali, man.
Yeah,
my sister's never been to Cali either.
That's great. I'll sweeten the deal. You come here, we'll shoot a Tesla commercial.
Okay,
like,
that sounds like a plan, bro.
A big reason why I can is you just need a good number of people, and a lot of people I know, you know, just kids and whatnot. So it's hard for them to get out. But we can do something dope.
Yeah.
Shout out to Aaron.
Join on time. I feel like I've seen that name before.
I feel like I have too, but I think there's another guy, Aaron Lindman. This is Aaron Schroep. Thank you for being here, man. The first time you've been able to join on time. All right, let's get into it, guys. Palantir up 8.5% today. Kathy Wood bought another 1.2 million shares. Carlos, let's start with you.
Do you like Kathy Woods again now?
I love Kathy Woods.
Oh, man. Did you see what I wrote when I retweeted your thing? I was like,
what did you say?
Palantir confirmation bias party starting in 30 minutes.
Bro, I love it. She's like, yeah, AI, revolutionary, Palantir, all the. I'm like, I love it. It's great. It's amazing. Right. I'm so happy about her.
But it didn't break. Oh, it broke $10.
It broke 10. Yeah, it ended at 10. And you're up on your position, right?
I'm up. It's one of the few that's green because I just keep buying all my other stuff. But
Mario, your bet is wrong. I bet
my wife is the net beneficiary of. This morning I told her, I was like, babe, let's sell some Palantir and buy some bags. She's like, no, you can sell everything else, but you're not touching my Palantir. I was like,
why is she real? She's a
she actually listens to Palantir Weekly. Kris just talks. Yeah. She listens, and so she gets it.
She's actually a Palantir bull more than I am. Like I have some Palantir now versus I spoke about it, but like nothing that I had before. She's the one that's got the Palantir right now, bro. She's making money on Palantir. I'm just making a few bucks here and there on some bank stocks, but she's doing well. Yeah.
Look, if it goes back down under 10 or whatever, I'll ride it up. But I will sell that. Like if Enphase hits 140, it's gone. If Tesla hits anywhere near 100, sorry, it's gone. Like you know, or Bitcoin, whatever. There's a million reasons why I would just sell it. But
you know, I want to bring up something that I was actually really proud of one of our viewers. Like, you know, this guy Live and Let Go. I don't know if you guys know him. He usually he's on our Twitter. So, you know, he did really well on his position with SMCI. Like we were speaking about it. He bought into it. Was it SMCI? I think he bought something else.
It was SMCI. It was that one.
It might have been SMCI, but he bought something. And he was up on a really large position for it. And he actually messaged me today. He sold a portion of it and just bought the QQQ. And I am so happy that people do that, where when you have a winner, like, when there's time to be opportunistic, people take the opportunity to get in. But then when there is time to just, you know what, I have done really well. Let me take some money off the top of and put it into some index fund that I know that I don't have to worry about. That's like the house's money. And that was such a smart move on his part. Even if SMCI goes to like 300, I don't give a shit. I think that was a smarter move. And I think I am like, I do that typically too. Like I rotate every 10 years, but like right now I see opportunities in the market. So I'm buying individual companies, but I think eventually when we start to get back to a new normal again, I'm likely to sell a good portion of my portfolio and go back into the index funds, and I'm not talking about like the leverage funds, like the triple Qs or the TQQQs. I'm talking about either just QQQQ or VU, and just stick to those, because I think one of the big mistakes that we all make is we get caught in this euphoria of things will always be good like this all the time. I'm going to do this, do that. And then it's like,
then 2021 hits.
Yep, exactly.
Vitaly and I talked about that a lot too, that you have a lot more opportunities to practice your buying than you do your selling. And selling, especially when you're up a lot, is an incredibly emotional thing. And you're not prepared for that, because most of the time you're buying companies, they're in the toilet, right? They're shit. You're kind of depressed. You're kind of down. You feel like you're throwing your money down the toilet. But when it's high, you get this, man, it's a rush, when you're looking at a massive number and you're like, I'm about to sell this. But sometimes you guess wrong. You get greedy. It's unfortunate.
And I think the key is not to sell your entire position, but sell portion of it. You know what I mean? Like if you're up so much, you've done really well. You can let most of the money ride, but just take a few off the top and put it into something that's like, just like it's your what's the word? It's your base. It's like your safe haven.
Or, for me, a lot of what triggers the sells is like, I put solar in my house in 2019, and I'm looking at the bill every month, and I'm like, it's a manageable bill. It was like a reasonable interest rate, but I'm like, if I can just get rid of this, let's just get rid of it, right? And like a car loan my wife had, we had a Nissan Leaf for a while. I was like, let's just get rid of it and not have that monthly bill, and it feels great. Or you have some debt that you've incurred. It just feels great to just be free of that.
Yeah, yep. I agree. And that speaks to this comment. Admit what level would Palantir need to hit for you to sell?
$750 a share.
But it speaks to what Kris said, like to be reasonable. But if Palantir hits 50 tomorrow, I'm out of everything because it's unreasonable, right? Whereas if it hits 50 in 5 years, then I'm like, all right, it's been 5 years, it's 50. Yeah. Let's see if it gets to 100. So I think that's what Kris's point is about, knowing when to sell and putting it into something safe, like a dividend.
Yeah. And once again, it's not that you have to sell the entire position, right? It's just taking a little bit off the top. So like a good example of this, and I think this is a good thing to talk about, is NVIDIA, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people did really well on NVIDIA over the last like 90, maybe 180 days. The AI revolution is there. If you're up exceptionally well on NVIDIA, you don't have to fucking sell the entire position, but take a little bit off the top, put it away into a nice index fund. This way, if things go down, you're still like, I made a good move. I'm smart. And if things go up, it's like, yeah, I didn't capture 100% of the upside, but I also didn't risk the money on the house that I worked really hard for to get to a point where we are where we are.
So let's spend like 5 minutes on Palantir, then we'll move to NVIDIA. Kris, why do you think Kathy's buying again?
I think with gap profitability, there is better chance for the growth story to materialize now. And I hate to say this, but I think a lot of the ARK funds are very like they're clout chasing. Like when the clout is on a company, they usually go into it and they follow, and then they buy up a lot. And then when the clout is starting to die down, they sell out. I don't know. I just, their methodology for investments, it's just weird. Like right now they sold Shopify. Like, on one hand, you're like, oh, we buy companies for 5 years, but you don't do that. You're not holding these companies for 5 years.
I think that this is what I think. She has a 5-year time horizon, but it doesn't mean every stock she buys, I'm going to hold it for 5 years. I think that's the difference. People give her a lot of shit for that. But if she were to say, I'm going to put this many millions of dollars in this stock and hold it for 5 years, that allows other people that are investing in the stock or that have intentions against her to affect her. So I think she still has a responsibility to show some sort of profits on a quarterly basis. And she also needs people to continue to bring money into the fund. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I don't think she's doing it in her personal portfolio. You think she's selling Tesla shares in her personal portfolio? I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, the taxable consequences would be up there. The other thing is, I think from a performance standpoint, she has an actively managed ETF. So it's not passive, it's active, which means that if you're not actively doing stuff to it, people will be like, why am I paying you money? You know, maybe that's another factor that's in there. So, because I mean, other than it, dude, if you're a passive innovation investor, you know, you don't buy and sell all the time. You just buy and you wait until the thesis comes true. You know,
but even on my end, a good portion of the purchase, when I bought a little bit of Palantir, was because I mean I was going and doing what I said I would do for a bit, but another part of it is like it's just the sector at the price that it was, it's going to go up, at least in the short term. It's going to go up. It's kind of like your argument about the banks. This is not about like I think banks are the best stocks ever. It's like they've been beaten down. Money's starting to flow in. If you want to make some money in the next couple of months, this looks like a good place that you can do it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a key to look at. I think a lot of times we want to find these individual companies that are going to outperform the market, but then there's also times where you just have the entire sector rotating in and out of good times and bad times. So you could take a dart and just throw it at any company in that sector, like today, right? Like regional banks, the big banks, everyone in financials rallied like crazy. You could have took a dart, just throw it at a name, and you would have got at least a minimum of 5%.
Well, Kris, let me ask you. You said you bought banks this morning. Why are you buying the day they're rallying?
Well, I bought in the morning time. I still had a significant amount of banks before that. I just moved a lot of stuff out of my growthy tech stuff and into the banks.
Can you give us an example of some growth stuff you kind of sold off a little bit?
Duolingo. I sold a little bit of Duolingo off today, you know, because they've had a really good run. Right. Yeah. I sold a little bit of SMCI because that was another one of my really big winners, you know, over the last like 3-4 months. So the thing is for me, it's like, okay, I'm not going to be afraid to take some profits off the top and put it into a sector which is woefully undervalued. Like any company you look in the financial side, they were undervalued. So I bought a little bit more of Truist. I bought a little bit of KeyBank. You know, KeyBank is a little bit more speculative. But at the end of the day, they still have some good fundamentals behind it. I bought Zion Bank. Zion Bank has a huge presence in Utah, and they actually were formerly associated with like the Mormon Church of the Church of Latter-day Saints. Yeah, so they grew up out of that. So you know,
you're buying Jesus. You're buying Jesus.
Well, I wouldn't call it just Jesus. I'd say
he's like I'm buying. I'm investing in holy water.
Yeah, Kris, are you swing trading these banks, or are you holding for the long term?
I believe it or not, I'm holding for the long term until they revert back to their mean again, right?
Define long term.
Well, if they revert back to the mean in 6 months, you know, that's a nice game.
And the thing with banks, though, remember, is that they pay dividends. Like unlike other companies where if they revert back to the mean and you're just chilling with them, that's it. You're just chilling. You're not really, you know, you may not get as much capital appreciation. Like look at Meta, right? Like I love Meta to death. I still have a significant amount of money in Meta. You know, I don't want to pay the taxable consequences for it. But at the end of the day, if it's flat, I don't get anything for Meta. On the other hand, if I have Truist and it goes flatline again, I'm still getting that nice quarterly dividend, right? So you have to also consider like, hey, what kind of business am I investing in? What kind of returns do I passively get? Because eventually,
why wouldn't you consider like an AT&T or a Verizon?
You know, utilities
AT&T for a long time was a good one, and it's like it's like, you know what it's like when you play Monopoly, you want to be the guy owning B&O Railroad. You know what I mean?
No,
like, you want that. You want the electric company.
Agree.
You know what I mean? Like
I totally agree with you. The only thing is, you will get a fixed return for a long period of time. So if you have a very flat market, then that's fine. Those are the companies that you want to have, especially for companies that during a recession, utilities do exceptionally well because they're fixed businesses. Like you can't just cut them off. Like people are not going to say, you know what? So, but the difference is you're not going to see a lot of capital appreciation also. Right?
You're right. But you also don't have the same risk of capital depreciation.
But I think that's Kris's point is like the risk on these regionals is just so low because they don't deserve to be at this level. And that's, you know, maybe he'll be right, maybe he's wrong, but
right. But we wouldn't be saying that maybe AT&T is going to go down, maybe not.
Right. That's fair.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it could be that I'm a bit old school in that sense, but I'm just like,
no. And
real quick, Kris, I'm gonna have to let you finish, but at 14 minutes and 39 seconds for the third day in a row, we're holding good 3 days straight. $400.
Nice. I like how you pulled the I'm gonna let you finish. You know, I was gonna say, do you guys know about the wrap it up?
For us, man. 400.
You guys know about the wrap it up box?
No.
Yeah, the one from Chappelle show. Chappelle show.
Okay.
You got to pull that up at some point. It's hysterical. It's okay. You know, on the award shows, when someone starts talking too long, they start playing the music. It's like letting them know, just get that. It's the wrap it up box, and it does that. We need an equivalent of that.
The only Chappelle show episode I saw was when the white supremacist was blind or something.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Clayton Bigsby.
The racial draft was one of the best episodes where they're fighting that, you know, they'd be trying to get Tiger Woods. They couldn't tell if he was a white guy or a black guy.
Yeah, no, the best one was the Wu-Tang Clan with the Asians.
Oh, that was great. That one was good too. That's actually they were an investment firm. It was Wu-Tang. What was it? Wu-Tang?
Wu-Tang Financial.
Wu-Tang Financial. Yeah, yeah. And he's like, diversify your bonds.
Okay, so
he's like, we're about to go to war. Buy some atomic bombs.
Yo, it's just classic TV, man. I miss that.
That's it. I got you to 400. Yay me. Thank you, Detred. We appreciate that one.
Detred.
Okay, Carlos, let me start with you. NVIDIA at a 4P of 64, $300 it crossed. Do you think the stock is would you sell the stock right now at 300, or do you still think?
I actually own NVIDIA. I owned NVIDIA for a while. I owned NVIDIA and AMD for a while, but I could never have fathomed at the time that I was buying them what they would become. I just think that this is the picks and shovels of AI. Until the companies start to take and make the hardware in-house, they're the game in town, man. You know what I mean?
Are they the game in town, or?
Well, I think it's like them and AMD. Who else is making the chips?
Yeah.
Who else is making
the chips? That 2021 high, guys. 2021, it's at those highs right now.
Which is a scary high. No, to your point, that's a scary.
That's a
scary high. So I mean, look, if I was buying it, if I was buying this at whatever it was, you know, just around 100, to Chris's point, take some profits off. No, it's gonna continue to this is a company that will and should continue to perform at least for 5 years. It takes a long time to develop. Like, if you want to replace them as part of, if you want to bring this piece of the equation in-house as part of vertical integration, that's a lot of R&D and a lot of money you're going to have to spend.
So just a quick thing these guys, they do not make any GPU chips whatsoever. They don't make them, they design them. And that's the key, because all of that stuff is great IP that can't be replicated very easily. A lot of those things are very patented, everything else. But this is, I think, where we actually could see an opportunity with Intel. And let me explain why. Intel has got a giant subsidy from the government to build foundries in the US. And we all know what's going on with China, right?
Mm-hmm.
Intel could end up benefiting from the AI race, because they're the ones that could end up making the manufacturing the chips for AMD and for NVIDIA after 2025. So I would say, look, we all know, based on the crazy rise in the stock price with NVIDIA, and of course even AMD to an extent, and that AI is a real thing. The question is now, what are going to be the secondary highs that we can profit off of? Right? Like, if you guys know, GPUs are going to go crazy, but at some point TSMC is the risky play, because China at any point can say, you know what, we're going to invade you. So what does that mean? That means that a lot of the AI companies, or anyone doing work in AI, they're going to want to diversify their supply chain, saying, look, we will buy some NVIDIA chips that are coming from TSMC, but then there's also some chips that NVIDIA chips that we will buy from Intel, because Intel is manufacturing them. You know, just
I have TSMC it's in the dividend portfolio, because they apparently they supply a lot of chips for Apple. And if you're
what did you think of Elon basically saying China's going to invade them no matter what? What do you think? Do you think he believes that? Or?
Wait, say invade.
So Elon was asked yesterday, China, would they invade Taiwan? And he basically said, you don't have to read between the lines to realize what they think about Taiwan, basically implying, yes, it's going to happen. What do you think would be the implications for Tesla and TSMC, right, Taiwan, if China does invade Taiwan? Or do you think it's so far out of the picture that that's just not going to happen?
I don't think anything's out of the picture after what happened with Russia. I think when they invaded, they expected a lot more pushback than they actually did. I'm saying Russia,
right?
You know, for Ukraine. I mean, we are basically fighting a proxy war with Russia by giving the Ukraine. But I think China does still have massive leverage over everybody and the American business, right? And so they can still, but the danger to them is that they don't really innovate anything. They don't really create anything. They copy. And so if you pull that manufacturing out, China can fall very quickly. And
Right.
I personally think that it's coming. I don't know exactly when. It's going to be horrible for markets short term. Of course, it's going to be horrible
100%.
for markets. Yeah, but I think we discussed this on a previous podcast. It could actually be very beneficial for Tesla. It'll be like, okay, a potential way it could play out. In the short term, it's going to be horrendous for the stock because a large majority of the volume comes out of Shanghai, so they're going to get hit, and it's going to be horrible. You know, you'll get Gary Black and Ross Scrubber. Everyone's going to be just shitting all over it. But when next quarter or two after that comes out, what are the Chinese EV makers going to be doing? It's going to be like a microcosm of what's going to happen here in the U.S., I think, but for different reasons. So the Chinese EV makers might suffer just because of what's of having a war in the country, whereas here, I think it's going to be just more fiscally. The companies here are going to suffer. But the end of the day is, as these companies go down or if they don't perform, the only company that can make a vehicle and sell to a customer will be Tesla. So it's going to suck short term. I mean, but it's going to suck for everybody. It's going to suck for Apple. It's going to suck for anyone that has any.
That's what Elon was saying. He was like, I don't know where you're going to get an iPhone from if this shit happens. So
right. But even when COVID happened, they moved a good portion or a key critical piece of their supply chain into Vietnam. They'll move into countries around it. It's a bad move for them, but China almost has no choice at this point. Otherwise they'll just be seen as a paper tiger.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. What do you guys think? You think this is going to happen?
Well, here's the thing. I think we're more likely to see a Cold War scenario where we're going to see like constant fights, like proxy fights. But unlike the Russians, where we had like kinetic warfare proxy fights, I think with the Chinese, we're going to see economic warfare. Right. So what I mean by that is certain Chinese companies, of course, will want to compete with the U.S. and, sell their products into a country. The U.S. will, of course, want to sell its products into another country. And so each country is going to have to align themselves to their core industries that they're really good at and end up benefiting. So here's an example. The Chinese have really made a big bet on solar, right? Like the reason why solar panels are so cheap is because the Chinese have basically subsidized so much of their production because they want to own the solar market. And they do own the solar market. I think almost 95% of all solar panels are manufactured in China.
But don't you think a lot of that is because China's is defensive? They are. I mean, they're polluting. They're one of the world's biggest polluters. And don't you think that it's just more of a defensive move? I mean, have you seen what some of these cities look like? The smog in some of these.
Oh
cities?
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But
I mean, if you've got like their version of Central Park is indoors, dude. Like they have indoor parks where kids have to play because if you go outside, like it's like literally burning your eyes. Like, so yeah, they might own the market, but they're doing it defensively because they kind of have to. It's not because they really want to innovate.
I think what it is they realize that this is something that they need, but then they could also profit from, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like if you solve a problem for yourself, but if you know that this is something that can work for other people, why not make a profit off of it? You know what I mean? So it's almost like you're learning a skill, but if you take that skill and end up making it something else, like for other people, it ends up being a big thing. So as an example, like the Japanese in the 1960s and 70s, they started their own car manufacturing because you know what? They didn't want to import all these cars coming from the US. And then they became so good at manufacturing their cars, they realized, hey, this is an industry that we can globalize and then bring in a ton of tax revenue.
Actually, it was more the Japanese.
That's what I'm saying. The Japanese in the 1960s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and
Datsuns.
And they ended up dominating the market. So I think
the American companies basically conceded that part of the market to the Japanese and said, let them take it. That's why you saw the Hondas, the Civics,
and the same thing's happening with solar too, right? Where basically the US, like there is no way a company who's manufacturing panels in the US can go toe to toe in terms of profitability with the Chinese. It's just
actually look there to Mario's point about that. Bring that back up about nuclear, right? That's actually one of the best arguments for nuclear power. That you don't want to be dependent on China to be making your solar panels when you can develop the nuclear power here. Like the energy it's huge. It is a matter of national security, man.
Yeah.
Bro, what's Kim Jong-un doing? I haven't heard of him in a while.
Well, he was testing intercontinental ballistic.
He's always testing some, like, what's he? I wonder what North Korea's plan is in this whole geopolitical, remodeling.
I think we like to think that there has to be a plan, but the dude he's basically a king. I don't think he really has a plan. I mean, what could he do? If this was 200 years ago, he could go and start invading other countries. He takes one step into South Korea, homeboy is gonna get.
Bro, that's, bro,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If he even gets a telescope and starts looking into South Korea, bro,
every
he's
time
looking at
he threatens me, I'm
Splinter
like,
Cell, looking back at him, we'll see two green eyes. I mean, you let me know, Chris. You're the military
bro, but
guy.
that's why when
What
Trump
happened
calls
to
him,
Kim Jong-un?
The thing is, these guys gotten used to something called hostage politics, where they hold the world hostage to try to extract more and more out of them, right? Because that's how they work. They basically like go to the South Koreans and say, "Look, man, you don't give us some money, we're gonna bomb you. We're right next to you. Remember, we have missiles now. We got this." And so like it's this hostage politics.
but that's
And
why
also,
when Trump called him Little Rocket Man, everyone was like, "That's so." I'm like, "What's he gonna do? What is he gonna do?" Like, if anything, Trump was getting some leverage there because like he's not.
But it was risky in the sense that you don't want to provoke someone like that. But I
like,
think,
what's he gonna do? That's the point.
well, what do you mean? What's he gonna do? He's got nuclear weapons, dude.
No, but
Yeah.
we know if he launches anything, North Korea is wiped off the face of the planet, and he knows
that is
that.
true.
So
Okay,
like,
but this is a guy that got to power killing like his uncle. Like, do you think he gives
Yeah,
a shit?
yeah, but it's
bro.
like,
You're not
it's
fucking
easy,
with the
yeah.
U.S. You're not fucking with Mother Russia, the U.S., China. You're not fucking with them. You could kill your uncle.
US
I don't know. I think that those concerns were founded, but like for example, if Biden were to say that, I think it would fall very differently than if
I
it
agree.
was Trump.
I agree.
It's,
Well, the thing is,
sometimes it's
Trump
the
somehow
messenger.
got away with that shit.
Yeah.
No. So
I think he was honored to get a nickname, right? He was like, you know what I mean? He was looking at where
Because Trump has a nickname for everybody.
I want a fucking nickname. You know,
I think
his
with
father,
Trump,
Maxine. He killed his fucking father, dude.
Yeah. Wait, he killed his dad?
Yeah.
No,
it
he
was a
didn't.
whole- I actually was watching something.
I'm gonna
recently
Google
on-
this shit right
on-
now. No, I'm
on
not
the-
checking
No, look it up.
YouTube.
The story is insane because I was there's that famous chick. She's like that really cute chick that left. She was on Joe Rogan that escaped from North Korea.
Yeonmi
and she went
Park.
on-
Yeonmi Park.
Yeah, and
Yeonmi
she was
Park,
explaining
yeah.
a lot about what happened, and she was talking about the dangers of socialism. That I guess Kim Jong-un's father got into power by saying to the people, "Put me in power, and I promise you that we will have that everything will be equal, right? You'll have food, and just give me the rights to just give me the rights to basically make you guys equal, and I want rights to all of the property." And everything that's happened since then was
Okay,
All right,
so
so ChatGPT says no, but I don't know if I believe her.
he died of a reported heart attack. Okay, okay.
Oh
sure.
no, I'm gonna say, but
Yeah.
how
died-
did he actually die?
Right, because he woke up and there was 5 guys around him with knives, and he had a heart attack. So yes, technically,
Are you
reported died of a
being
heart attack while
honest
traveling on a train.
or just covering
The official
for
cause of
Rocket
death
Man?
provided by the North Korean state media.
Oh, right here. However, due to the secretive nature of North Korean state, the exact circumstances.
Right.
Let's see what she says here.
Right. Are you being I like your prompt. I don't have personal feelings or intentions.
Regarding
Yeah,
the death,
okay.
North Korean state media. Okay, then we know it's North Korean state media reported that shit.
Right.
There's often skepticism about information. There has been no internationally recognized evidence.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: is Kim Jong-un just doing the best for his people? Let's see what ChatGPT. The
You gotta
nature
make
of
it bigger.
confusion-
You got to make it bigger. And Chris, you should read it, but read it in what you think ChatGPT's voice sounds like.
Nah, man, it's probably some robotic shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, you want me to share this thing?
Yeah. Show that real quick. I think this just goes to
Larchmont, New
show
York.
when it comes to like nuclear. So Finland, they just finished building their nuclear, like a really big nuclear power plant in their country, right? Clean energy. The price of electricity dropped 75%. How crazy is that? No carbon free. I mean, it's carbon free energy coming in, provides huge amount, low
In China, you're saying?
footprint.
In China?
No, this is Finland.
Oh, I'm
Finland.
sorry. Yeah, I wasn't. I
Yeah.
wasn't.
So it just goes to show, like, you have the Germans, right? The Germans, they have all these nuclear power plants that they shut down because, I don't know, because like the lobbyist groups that.
Yeah, can you
came
explain this
after
to me?
nuclear.
Why did the Germans shut down nuclear power when it was obviously the most efficient, and now they're relying on Russia?
So there's a couple of things. There was a lot of lobbying that was done in the 80s to make
Right.
nuclear not safe, right?
Yeah.
And then you also had a lot of bad press come towards nuclear. Like an example is
Fukushima.
the three main ones that come to mind. Number one are, of course, Chernobyl, which is the worst natural disaster in forever, right? Where you
I
basically
got a crazy
had,
story to tell you about Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Some crazy fact that I found
Oh,
out
yeah?
the other day. Yeah.
Okay.
so-
And then you had, for
Yeah.
us in the US, we had 3 Mile Island, right? That was another one that was
Mhm.
really up there. And then the last, of course, was Fukushima Daiichi,
yeah.
which, so with that fresh in people's brains, people are like, hey, you know what? Maybe nuclear is not the way we want to go. Nuclear has because it's just the thought of nuclear is everyone just looks back and just thinks atomic bomb.
Heinz's comment.
What is that?
It just made me laugh.
What's their name? Is it an old? What do they say? Because I don't even see it.
Well, she said that it sounded like
Greta Thunberg won
because Greta Thunberg said, "How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you?"
Yo, Carlos, what are your thoughts on Greta Thunberg? What do you think about her?
I think she's on the spectrum, and I think she's being not I wouldn't say manipulated. I think she came to it with good
influenced, heavily influenced.
She's now reminds me of like a child actor. Like that parents start making a lot of money off of it. She becomes the face of it. She becomes a way to indoctrinate a new generation into policies that don't necessarily favor them. I mean, did you see all of the videos when she was at what did she go, that climate summit that was there? Some of those videos were taken down, and I think that there was some Palantir stuff involved.
I've seen some videos. I think you guys have seen this on Twitter. It kind of goes to your point, Carlos, where there's people who go on the middle of a highway and they just sit there protesting climate change. And this is in Houston. And or Indiana, someplace.
They get thrown on. They get grabbed by the head and get thrown on the side.
It was like a massive line of traffic, and these people are coming out of their cars saying, like, what is the point? I have to get to work. Like, why are you doing this? They're like, we're trying to bring attention. And the people are just like, I gotta get to work, buddy.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not responsible. Yeah, and people throwing soup on priceless works of art. Yeah. It's just not the way. I'm not saying that she's responsible for it. Believe me, I'm not saying she's responsible for it. I think that, man, anything that has any sort of pull is just going to be corrupted immediately. And I don't trust the people that she had around her at the beginning of that, right? I think she might have, her first speech, it made a lot of sense. But since then, I mean, I'm sure you saw a lot of the videos of the staged arrests that she's got. And she was actually called out for that at this forum that I was. So there's these guys from Australia that do some like really guerrilla investigative reporting, and they somehow got into that climate change forum. And then as she was walking from one event to the other, they basically threw every question in the book at her about like, what do you have to say to people that saw you stage this thing? And she just sat there and giggled and laughed. And so I think part of it is that she's on the spectrum and doesn't necessarily operate the way that we normally do. And then I think she's been compromised in that sense.
Staying on this topic a little bit longer, Kris, you tweeted today that a carbon tax is not the worst idea in the world. Do you think that would be a better solution than Greta talking about all this other stuff?
So the thing is, like, when we want to transition to a non-carbon environment, right? The thing is, when you try to transition anything, there is a cost. There's a really big cost hurdle that has to be overcome. Like right now, you can't just come out to the world and say, you know what, from now on, you can't buy like gas cars anymore. If the government had done that, Tesla would never have gone off the ground, right? And Tesla would have still probably been, they might have even gone bankrupt, to be honest with you. But probably it's thanks to a lot of the credits that they were able to charge these other fuel companies, like these emission, ICE companies, that they were able to support Tesla in its earlier years to get it to the point where we can actually decarbonize and, transition to more cleaner energy. So my thing is, when it comes to carbon capture, when it came to a carbon tax at first, I was like, that's just a stupid idea. Like who would do that? But I'm seeing that corporations now, especially, are willing to actually pay that little bit extra, so that this way, not to just get a good ESG rating, but then also use that as an offset for some of the stuff that that they need to invest in anyway to get to a better place. So, as an example, you have all these celebrities, and this is what really led to the conversation. A lot of these celebrities that come up with this performative bullshit where they're like, "We need to save the environment," and then they go into their fucking private jet, they fly around the world. Right.
It was a great infographic of that. Yeah. At that climate change forum about how many private jets they were, the amount of fuel that they burned, the amount of pounds.
Now, here's the thing. I don't mind that they fly private. I don't. I at this point, look, rich people are gonna rich people. That's just how the world works. Everyone has to accept that. Now the question is,
drip. Rich people gonna drip.
Yeah, like, bro, if I'm straight with you. If I had the money, I'd fucking fly private too. I've flown commercial. Commercial sucks, but I wouldn't like necessarily do it all the time. It's
the value of your time.
Yeah. So I think at this point, I would say implementing something like a carbon tax where, if you want to live the jet setting life, go ahead, live it. But just know that we're going to charge the shit out of you so that this way, some poor family in the middle of Iowa can change out their fuel oil heating for something that's like a heat pump, something that's a lot more efficient.
What's interesting to me, and anyone that has kids knows that there's two ways to get your kids to do something. It's the carrot and the stick. Okay. And what's funny to me is corporations in America, especially capitalist corporations, are very much like toddlers, right? And I feel like anyone that has kids knows that what works more than the stick is the carrot. And I think you have to, if we incentivized our companies to do the things that we want, we wouldn't have to legislate them so horribly on the bad side, right? So instead of, for example, instead of incentivizing people, right, we think of a carbon tax. Right. So you say, I'm going to tax you for using too much carbon. Well, what if the government just had a pool of money that people could have access to if you hit these metrics? So like as part of a quarterly earnings, instead of it just being what is your earnings, your PE ratio, how much carbon did you put in the atmosphere, right? Or whatever it was, how much impact did you have negatively on the environment? The lower that number is, if markets saw that as a positive, believe me, if that was a metric that analysts used,
100%,
guarantee you, everyone would figure out a way to suddenly make that happen, because it becomes a knob that you can turn. And you basically, you using the carrot, you play towards the human instinct of greed.
This is why when people say capitalism is the reason for all this, I'm like, no, capitalism is the solution. You create these monetary incentives and renewable energy technology, all this stuff to decrease the problem, not to blame greed and.
But okay, I see capitalism is like the game. Okay, it's like when you play, it's like bowling. Okay, you're playing a game of bowling. If you had an infinite number of pins set up and you had no gutters, then everybody would always get a strike. What makes bowling interesting is the rules that you have to play within, right? And that's the same way. What makes these companies, I feel like the guardrails that we put up around the companies should incentivize great gameplay. You know what I mean? And they don't incentivize great gameplay right now. So the legislative, I think, are like the rules of the game, right? It's like it's going off sides in football. You can't jump early. It's basketball. You can't travel with the ball. Otherwise, it makes the game unfair. And that's what I think the role of government should be, is to create rules that are even and fair, but also make intense gameplay and make it a good game. Right.
Yeah, but see, Greta wants to get rid of the whole game. She wants to get rid of the whole system.
But I think that that's what makes me feel like there's something else at play. That's what makes me not trust her, because those are things that you say to impressionable 16, 17, 18-year-olds to get them to throw tomato soup or sit on the freaking highway. If somebody's down,
they're always tweeting from their goddamn iPhones. Like, every one of them.
Some 6-year-old got Cobalt out of a mine and built those iPhones for them so that they can tweet. But the thing is, they're too young to recognize the irony in that.
Yeah.
And that's partially the adults around them are responsible.
And I was in that stage too 8 years ago.
One of the things that I do want to talk about.
By the way, I think we all were. I'm sure, Chris, you went through that.
Yeah, all of us.
I went through it too.
Wasn't a piece of that why you joined the Army?
Yeah, of course, man. There was actually a movie with Robert Redford that I saw that reminded me of exactly the kind of like thought patterns that they had. Like, did you guys ever see Lions for Lambs? Basically, it's like you had this like these students who were like these idealists, right? They went to like a college course, and one of the things that they talk about is civics and like how the world really works. And one of them was a Mexican, the other guy was a black guy, and so they ended up they were talking about these idealistic views. And so someone said in their class, like, so it's great that you have all these ideas, but what are you doing about it? And so right in the middle of the class, they actually on the projector they put up their enlistment papers and said, look, we're actually going to be part of the solution. We're going to try to make a positive change in life. So they ended up dying, by the way, at the end of before the end of the movie.
Oh, damn.
The whole premise of the movie. Well, that's because the whole premise of the movie, it was partially anti-war and partially like how the world really works. Like all the idealism in the world telling you like, hey, this is how things should be. Right, Lions for Lambs. That was a really good movie, and
right. They just called you out. The spoilers, just like anyone who wanted to watch it was like, damn, man.
Robert Redford,
because you can't watch the movie, you got to watch Finance Junkies instead.
Tom Cruise was in it, and one of the things that you saw was how the politicians were manipulating the entire narrative and the story, and like how some generals and stuff they would say shit that if you were someone from the outside, they would piss you off. You know, like some of the stuff that they would say, like politicians would say, oh yeah, we lost 100 guys this month in Afghanistan, but the enemy may have bloodied our nose, but we're winning the fight. And clearly we were not winning the fight. Like 20 years later, what did we gain out of Afghanistan? What did we gain out of Iraq?
Yeah.
Like, you know, this wasted lives, wasted treasure for what? You know, the US is in a worse off place for trying to change these people's hearts and minds. And it's just like, look, eventually people will evolve out of their situation, but we don't need to be the world's, like, what's the word, like, I don't know,
The world's
I have
policeman.
a different perspective of the world after everything, and after seeing a lot of the stuff happen in Afghanistan, especially how we exited it, it made me lose faith a little bit in our
that hurt my
ability
feelings,
to,
man. That like hurt my feelings when I saw when you saw the people jumping on the plane. I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's just so much sacrifice for what, you know, for what?
All right, let me make 2 announcements. Number 1, StreamYard is in the chat. So if you want to ask a question, please come and join. Last 20 minutes of the pod. So please come on. Camera has to be on and you can chop it up with us for a little bit. Number 2, going back to that conversation of jets, you know, how people name their jets, like when they buy a big,
like a boat
or their boat. If I ever buy a jet, I will name it Netflix, because at that point I'd be done with commercial. Anyways, moving on.
Dude. Bro, someone's got to do a supercut of all of your jokes. Like,
bro, that wasn't even mine. That was a Russ lyric. I stole that from Russ. Made a lyric about it. All right, while we're waiting for people to come back in.
Look, Scott Killian gave you $2 to get off the stage. He's like, please, we'll give you money so Mitch stops making jokes.
Thank you, Scott. All right, while we're waiting for people to come backstage, Carlos, your thoughts on TikTok officially being banned in Montana?
Right. Read a little bit more. It's just government. It's just government phones.
Well, the government passed a bill to ban it, and I think it just has to get passed. But like the point is, it's going to get banned.
But what phones? Is it just
no? Everybody. This is not just government phones. This is everybody.
I mean, in terms of
that's the governor. This is
okay, so no one in Montana can access.
Just like India. In India, you can't have TikTok. In Montana, you can't have TikTok.
I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Why do we allow other countries to come? Like, I can't go to China right now and buy a house, but they can come here and buy stuff here. Why are we selling out our own stuff? Why don't we have the same feeling of national sovereignty that all these other countries in the world have?
You guys, Carlos, you want to hear something really funny that not too many people know? When you go to China, even if you're Chinese, you can't buy a house because
I know it's a 99-year lease.
That's right. So one of the reasons why all these Chinese people end up buying houses in Canada and the US is because you actually have strong property.
They want to own something. Yeah, they want to own something.
In China, it's just a 99-year lease that, you know what, like maybe this generation you're fine, but then the next 2 generations you might not own anything.
But that's my point. We should not be allowing that, and we should not allow another country to be able to have that much access to people's personal data.
I just don't think it's going to spread. Montana's really conservative. I don't think any other states are going to do it.
Yeah, okay, that's what you think.
You think Los Angeles? You think California?
That's what they said about legalizing weed, dude.
If California banned TikTok, the amount of influencers that would not have a job tomorrow would make the unemployment rate increase.
No.
That's what would happen if they banned.
Look, but that's what they said. That's what they said when Twitter killed Vine. There were so many people that were making their money off Vine. And I know this because I worked with
1 billion users. Vine. TikTok has half of America on it. That's all I'm saying. I don't think you get reelected in New York or California if you ban TikTok.
I don't think so. No. I think it depends on
AOC endorsed it.
It's all the messaging. Say what? AOC endorsed. AOC endorsed it. Look, I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea, and I think that some American company should be working on capturing that crowd.
All right, Kris, last 30 seconds, and we got 3 people in the back. So go ahead.
Okay. I think right now this could be really big for Meta, because what's going to happen is a lot of influencers who might be primarily on TikTok are going to say, wait a second, I better diversify my fan base to include things outside of TikTok, whether that means getting on Twitter, getting on Instagram, getting on X, Y, and Z, so that this way, Snapchat, so that this way they have a diversified audience, right?
They're
so
not platform dependent, basically.
That's right,
but
exactly.
The truth of the matter is most of them do. Like a lot of the content that you see, here's the flip side of that. A lot of the content that you see on Facebook and on Instagram are people sharing TikTok reels.
The problem is all of those platforms suck at discovery. I've been saying this for years. Everyone knows this. But you know, if TikTok gets banned, maybe they'll get better at discovery. We'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, that's a big question. When you say
because when you say
discovery sucks, you have to define You have to define, well, what's the purpose of the discovery, right? And you have to
Right.
define like what is the benefit to the end user? What's the benefit to the person sending you that? So there's a lot to unpack there, but it's clearly successful because the purpose of what they're doing is to keep you on the platform. So in that, if that's the metric, if that's the bar, they're incredibly successful.
So someone
All
said,
right, we got to get people in the back now.
Yeah, is there anyone from Montana in here?
Greg,
I think there was
one of my friends.
How's it going?
How you doing, man? I met he reached out to me a long time ago, like I think last year. You've been starting to watch my content. He texted me personally today saying he wants to be on, so I'm happy you're on, man. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm a huge fan of the show, huge fan of all three of you, and Vitaly as well. So I have a question for Kris, which I'm sure he can give us a quick 45-minute answer on.
Oh, I just asked him for 30 seconds and we got 3 minutes.
Can you flip Kris and Greg?
Yes.
I will do my best to try to keep it under 45. Maybe 44 minutes.
Just take 5 seconds, figure what your thesis is, your conclusion, say that first, and then explain.
Exactly. But actually, before I ask that, because I'll get off when I ask that, first I wanted to talk to Carlos about Palantir a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I obviously respect your opinion, Carlos. I think you're really brilliant. I'm a big fan. So when you and Vitaly put out your video about the Palantir, like that Palantir video you guys put out pretty recently, I wrote out this long comment on there, just kind of like going to all these different reasons why I feel like Palantir is an amazing long-term investment. And basically, you kind of replied saying like, while like you weren't even really necessarily arguing against that, but you were like, you kind of have a moral problem with Palantir because you feel like they're kind of like a public arm of the CIA or something like that.
Okay. I'm sorry.
And no, you're good. And I'm also like, so I want to understand, like, if you feel that way, why you all of a sudden did take, buy a few shares, and like, if your thing is maybe you're against it, so you're okay to do a trade with it. Why is it like if you're morally against investing it on the long term, which in reality is a trade anyway, even if it's like a multi-year trade, it's still you're buying something with the intention of selling it. So like.
So basically saying the ideological moral issue you had didn't stop you from buying 100 shares when it was running that you're up on. So why did you buy those 100 shares? It's a good question.
Well, if you were watching, well, seriously, no, thanks for the question. It's really cool to speak to someone that actually commented. This is like a first, dude. That is awesome. No, if you watch that episode, the reason why I bought was literally amidst enthusiasm. I remember, look, I remember being 25. Believe it or not, that was 20 years ago. Okay. I'm 20 years older than this guy. And I remember being at that point, and I saw the excitement that he had for seeing a company that you've bet on for a long time, that everyone's kind of shitting on you, finally be successful. And he's just like, just join this party with me. I said, you know what? It's not going to hurt me. Palantir's not going to sink or swim for by like $1,000 or whatever it was. Right. And it's more to just be like, I'm in this with you. I'm going to participate in it. Right. The moral
you still hate the company, which is the funny part.
It's not that you know what it is. You know what it is, Amit.
Like, I don't know how
it's not that I hate the company. I always ask myself with any company that I invest in, what does it look like for that company to be the most successful company in the world? Like, what does Apple need to do to be the most successful company in the world? They need to, create more phones, better products that change our lives. What does Tesla need to do to be the most valuable company in the world? They need to actually achieve their mission of moving us to sustainable energy. What happens if Palantir is the most successful company in the world? We're in perpetual war, at least at this point, unless they shift 80% of their business to the commercial side, right? And healthcare and all these other things that they're in. Yeah. We're in perpetual war.
Right. So again, that's fair, but I actually do believe on the long term, the commercial is going to completely like end up dwarfing the government side of things. It's because I really do feel like I feel like at least like I'm not going to say I'm guaranteeing this, but if we're talking about like the long term like mega bull case, because I know you like asking like what's the headline that's gonna make me be like, damn, I wish
you know what? No one's been able to answer that question. What's the headline that comes out a year from now that Palantir jumps 40% in a week?
I don't really have a headline specifically, and I can't say year, but I'm thinking more long term. Like let's say 10 plus years. I really feel like Palantir has at least a reasonable chance of like ending up being the operating system of almost all of like, let's say, Western commercial business, in the sense that everyone uses Microsoft or Google now for a bunch of different things. And if they're doing that and they have a moat, as of now, it seems like if you look at all these LLMs, they have two technological problems. One is that basically like people's data is not secure because, whether it's OpenAI or Google or whatever it is, they're getting a hold of their data, whereas Palantir specifically like safeguards people's data and doesn't take it from them. And then the other thing is that these LLMs do like hallucination, where basically like they start saying something confidently, but they're like the data behind their like answer is actually wrong, but they're just like being confident. Whereas with Palantir, like if you use like AIP, like AIP is just kind of like a product on top of the platform of Palantir, which is like organizing and managing all their data for that organization, plus the data around the world that's like relevant to their business or their organization. Like, so my
What do you think it's going to be
idea is
big?
that
Okay, I just want to go. I just want to go on record and say this. Maybe I haven't said it in this way. I don't doubt Palantir's technology. Okay, I think Palantir's technology augments, say, the human minds that are responsible for the business decisions in the same way that, like, we bionics would. Okay,
yeah.
I'm simply questioning about how and why it exists and what it means for the company in its current state to be incredibly successful. What does it mean for the rest of us? This is an issue that I have, say, with Instagram, right? If Instagram right now is trying to capture your attention and what it's doing, or TikTok by sending you bullshit videos, right? Or chicks twerking all day, or people if that's what they're doing to become successful, what it taken to its extreme,
that's not
what does that do to the society?
Well,
right?
like, okay, so let me ask you this, Carlos, like, do you think it's morally wrong for like them to make BP like go from $14 a barrel for like manufacturing to under $6 a barrel? Or like, do you think it's like immoral for them to like help people get COVID vaccines? I'm not saying I like or don't like COVID vaccines, but for the people that wanted them in the US and the UK, they were able to get them because of Palantir. You know, now you see the UK, like a lot of their big basically their entire hospital system in the UK is like ran on Palantir software. You look at like all these big.
So we'll do that final question for you, Carlos, and then Greg, we got to move on to one more person.
Yeah.
So, Carlos, do you think it is immoral?
So much, guys. Appreciate you.
No worries at all. Thank you for being here. Do you think it's immoral for people to get vaccines who wanted them, and for healthcare to be more efficient? Like, is that immoral to you at the end of the day?
No, that's not. And I think the way that you're phrasing the question, right? The way that you're phrasing.
No, but that's the truth. There's no. I'm not trying to.
No. Because here's why. That'd be like saying to me, "Hey, do you think that the ambulance that's burning gas taking that person to the hospital is bad?"
Well, that was our whole point. Like Greta Thunberg.
No. But that's how
ambulances
to me
need gas.
But I'm saying, to me, that's how ridiculous that sounds. Of
it's
course,
not ridiculous.
I wouldn't say that.
It's not. It's
you know, my point is the software is this. They have incredible software, and it does, like I said, augment on a almost bionic level the decision makers. But considering that it is essentially right now, most of it is from government, they're almost in a perfect situation where any negatives on Palantir we'll probably never hear about, because of how that company is.
Well, now that Vice is bankrupt, we're definitely not going to hear it.
Yeah, I mean. It's
all right. We got to move on. Greg, thank you so much for being on, man.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Greg.
Take care.
Thank you. Next guest we have, I think, is someone from Twitter that I've been tweeting with back and forth. And he'll let me know if it's him. Prakash, are you the Prakash from Twitter?
Yeah.
I love it. What's up, man? Thank you.
Well, hold on.
Are you guys meeting for the first time?
Dude, I remember. No, I remember Prakash. You did an interview with Darton's, Christian from Darton's.
Yeah, I did.
Holy crap, you're that.
I did the interview. I saw that interview. Very, very informative. Carlos,
that was one of like the best Palantir. I did not know you were that Prakash.
Yes.
Awesome.
So yeah, man. I mean, 2 years I have been completely into this, right?
I'm about to pull that up right now. Holy!
Where
crap.
are you right now? I feel like you're in like a dressing room in a mall.
No. I live in near Boston, in the suburbs.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna pull that thumbnail up so people can see. What's your question for us?
So I mean, Palantir, you know, right? I mean, we talk about it on a weekly basis anyway, right? I mean, but more than that, there are quite a lot of other interesting plays in the market currently, right? I mean, that's
a lot of what? I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you. A lot of what in place?
Interesting plays in the market.
There are quite a lot of other interesting plays in the market as well, right? I mean, two companies that I want to keenly go a bit more deeper. One is Accelera, right? I mean, I saw that I just started digging, the surface there. I mean, looks like a very interesting model, right? I mean, the royalty-based model, and as they do the more and more drugs, the compounding effect of that would be quite interesting to see, right? I mean, reaching.
So Prakash, I'll answer a couple of things really quickly. Like, I think Accelera has the potential to do 100x what it's currently valued
Yeah.
at. Okay. It's worth only $1 billion. It's got almost 900 million on the balance sheet right now. The
Yeah.
technology is 100% proven. They were able to get antibodies out during COVID. So a lot of companies, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, they're just bullshit companies where they'll claim that they can do X, Y, and Z. These guys have proven it. They've got counterparties like every major pharmaceutical company is a counterparty that works with them. The only problem that they have right now, and this is something that's something that they're addressing, is that when it comes to pharmaceutical product development, it takes a really long time to get to a point where you're able to monetize. Now, pharmaceuticals have also fell under another problem, which was that, you invest all your money into like one specific drug and then it goes through clinical trials.
Yeah,
and then if it fails, you go out of business. These guys are like, look, instead of trying to have a one thing, we're going to focus on doing as much of the part that we really need, which is the CRO, which is the contracted research. So we are going to focus. We're good with research. We're going to focus on research. If you see this company is full of the smartest, brightest PhDs in all of Canada and the US. Right? Yeah, the technology that they have, they own all the patents for it. One of Kathy Wood's companies, Berkeley Lights, tried to make a machine that did with something called microfluidics. These guys own the patent to it. They sued them into the fucking ground. And Kathy Wood lost, I think, $200 million on the whole thing. So, yeah. So this is a company that's definitely worth watching. But Prakash, I'll be 100%. I know a lot of people want me to talk about this, and I always ignore it. The reason why is because this is one of those companies that is still technically on the speculative side, and the thesis is not going to play out for 5 years. So whatever money that you're putting in right now, it's going to be locked up for 5 years. You're not going to touch it. You might even see some of it go down. But I will say this. I think we're hitting a significant bottom. I don't think that there's much room for it to go further down.
It's trading at almost the amount of cash they have, right?
Exactly.
Prakash, is there any other company you're looking at right now besides ABCL?
The other one is Intel. Right, so I've been like, looks like our thoughts match there, Kris. Actually, right. So Intel, the model that they are doing, they'll pretty much end up being the chip maker for
the
West. Actually, right? It's basically bringing that foundry, internal foundry, right? And even Intel's products will be kind of using very similar to an AWS for hardware kind of model, basically, right? They will provide the platform and services, right?
So just to because I'm not sure too many people outside of us really know this, and maybe this is something that we could do on another episode. But Intel made a lot of mistakes in the 2000s. In the early 2000s, they were really good. In 2010s, they made a lot of big mistakes. The mistakes is because they got really, really strong. And so what happened is they dropped the ball. They didn't think a competitor was going to come. They didn't take AMD seriously. And these guys invented EUV technology. So the company ASML, whatever the thing that they're using to process and make chips, the most advanced thing, Intel actually did all the research for it, except they didn't go that route, and they ended up messing that up. They missed out on EUV lithography, and now they tried to backpedal and everything else, and they lost market share. But under Pat Gelsinger, I think Intel could do very well over the next decade.
Yeah. It could very well turn around, right? That's another interesting one there. Yeah. So anyway, thanks a lot for the value that you all are providing. This is listen to you all quite a bit.
Prakash, I have two questions. Did you first one, did you actually 50x in NVIDIA?
No, I did not. So I 5x and basically got out. So I missed out another 20x basically, right? So
do you regret that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even today when you are like, oh, it is 300, I was like, oh man, I'm burning inside, right? I mean,
and so my second question is, I didn't know you were the real Prakash from that interview. Otherwise, I would have asked you this a long time ago. Can you do an interview with me on my channel? Can we set up an interview?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can do that. I mean,
because I think you said Palantir is another 50 bagger for you, or you think it has the potential to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do an interview on that. We'll talk. I'll hit you up. Awesome. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
Nice
All right.
to meet you.
All right.
I'll follow you
Thanks,
on.
Carlos.
I'll follow
Yeah.
you on Twitter.
See ya. All right, we got one more in the back. Ray, what's up?
Hello. Yeah, I just got off work and I saw you guys were on, so I'm going to get my financial lesson
Where
in
are
before
you
bed.
in the world?
I'm from the UK, and just a quick note. You talk about the NHS. Like recently, I called in for an appointment. It took 6 weeks for a 2-minute phone call with a GP, and then you wait for that 6 weeks. You get the 2-minute phone call, and then they arrange a meeting in person in like 4 more weeks or whatever. So it is a true
Welcome to socialized medicine. Everyone's like, oh my God, free healthcare. There you go. Enjoy your free healthcare.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so everyone talks about the Fed lowering interest rates and what that would mean for stocks, but I don't hear many people talking about them unwinding the trillions of securities and assets that they purchased. I think their balance sheet went from like 5 to 9 trillion over the pandemic. So I'm just wondering, is that something to be concerned about? Is that something, as they're selling all these securities or however they get rid of them, what will the effect on equities be?
So they're just letting them roll off. They're not necessarily selling them off. They're just letting it naturally roll off their balance sheet. I don't think it has that big of a negative impact. The thing is, it does provide for quantitative tightening. So if you think about it, and this is something that I said yesterday and I think a little bit before, it acts as a way of taking money out of circulation. So the more accurate thing to look at is the M2 supply. So the money that's currently in circulation. The more money that you take out of circulation, the more likely it is that you're going to have a deflationary environment, right? So right now you have a 5.25 Fed rate, and then on top of it, you've got this QT that's happening at the same time where you're letting treasuries roll off. That's another thing that's kind of like acting like the negative impact on inflation is being utilized by is being done by that QT. So that's another, I think, in my opinion, another 50 basis points. And then on top of that, there's a tightening of like the credit markets with a lot of banks and stuff. So you almost have close to 7.5-8% real impact against the current inflationary market, which is really good for equities, because what we want is inflation to come down and to the Fed to stop raising rates. Because the thing is, like, the more likely it is that the Fed raises rates, the more likely it is that businesses can't project out what they're going to do in terms of spending. They can't figure out, they can't get financing. That's the other thing. So business activity slows down. So that's not good. So what we're seeing right now is the market is anticipating rate cuts going into 2024. The market is always forward looking. That's the one mistake that I always used to make when I was younger, which was, hey, the Fed, what they're doing, this is really bad for the economy. But don't think of it that way. The market works in the future, where basically whatever actions
The Fed said they're not doing
today,
that shit till 2025.
Yeah, okay, congratulations. That's all they said about transitory and everything else. They say what they need to say in order to accomplish their goal. If their goal is to lower inflation, the last thing they want to do is say to everyone, "Hey guys, I think inflation is done. We're going to stop now." No, they're going to say, "Look, we're going to stay on it until the job is done." They cannot come out and say the truth. Watch this interview that look it up after this with Paul Tudor Jones and Austin Goolsbee, who was the one of the former chair of like the Fed. And basically Austin Goolsbee was like doing this performative bullshit where he was just like, "Oh yeah, I think we still got some more time to go. We think we're still gonna raise rates, blah blah blah." And then Paul Tudor Jones is like, "Look, we can tell you're a terrible liar. Like, we know what's actually going on." And I think what's happening is right now the market is rallying because they see that the rate cuts are there. Like, if you look at the inflation data, even from the Cleveland Fed, which does nowcasting, they're projecting this month to be like 4.13, which is an
really
800 basis point drop in inflation. It's crazy. So I would say right now is a good time to be in some beaten down industries that typically wouldn't necessarily benefit from okay, so I'll just be honest, because I don't want to go into fucking more tangents. I'm trying to cut back on the tangents. I would say the banks are a good place to be. That's
Just
it.
start
I
with
love
that
it. Chris
sentence.
ended it.
Like,
Yo,
just
hold
really
on, we
take
gotta
no-
clap it up for
just
that.
take that. I'm an editor, okay? Just take that sentence. If we were editing your interview, I would take that sentence and I'd put it right at the top.
But I'm so happy
Right.
he actually stopped himself without me
It's
having to
great.
cut him
No,
off
it's
and look
awesome.
like a dick.
It's
And he just
it's
said the
awesome.
banks are a good place to be. That's it.
Back
Ray,
to
is
the
there any
bank.
specific
Boom.
stuff
That's the
you were
bumper
looking
sticker,
at?
man. That's the bumper sticker. Bam.
The bumper sticker.
Sorry, did you ask a question?
Yeah, is there any specific industry you're looking at that prompted?
Well,
your
because of
question?
Chris, I'm in Truist, and it's up
Congrats.
6% today. So thank you, Chris, for that.
I love it.
And,
Okay. So that was a generic question on just where the market is going.
Yeah. I just get everyone talking about interest rates, but what about, because last time I watched, Powell talk, he was talking about unwinding all these securities that they've been buying in the trillions of dollars, and I'm thinking, is that going to affect? But Chris, your answer was too complicated for me. I didn't understand anything, but basically no is what I took from it, and I'm just going to keep buying. So thank you.
Just mean reversion. Remember, everything that goes down eventually has to come back up, especially if the business is doing well. The business is doing well. The bank is doing fine. They don't have any risk to commercial. They have very little risk to commercial. They're going to do well. It's just going to take time for the scenario to play out. Enjoy the dividends while they're coming, and I'm sure the next dividend is June 1st. So
yeah,
you're
I
gonna
got
get
in just
profits
before.
soon.
I just have to the ex-dividend rate, sadly. So for the next one.
Yeah.
But thank you, Chris, anyway, and all of you. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, Ray, how long have you been listening to the pod?
A few days, to be honest, or a few weeks, maybe.
How'd you discover the pod?
From your Twitter. Yeah, I was in Palantir as well for a while. So.
Okay, so you've been keeping up with the Palantir content, and then on Twitter, you saw the link, you checked it out one day, and then
yeah, and it's always on my top of my YouTube when I go into YouTube.com, it's always at the top, either live or
face
waiting.
right there, like with his hair all fucked up. Like
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, man. We appreciate you watching live. Really means the world to us. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you. Bye.
All right, man.
Just remember, the average person pays a bank. The average person pays the bank. The wealthy person gets paid by the bank. So,
I mean, that's kind of a good outro to the show right there.
That's it. All right. 450 people, 3 days in a row
You know
of 400, sustaining that for the majority of the pod. Thank you guys so much. We cannot explain how much it means for this to grow the way it has in less than a month.
It's true. We are now closer. If you look at the number 451, we're closer to 500 than we are to
300. Then
yeah,
that's true. Then to
you understand? We've crossed the threshold. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means a lot, guys. It really means a lot. So thank you all for joining. Please, the pinned channel in the chat is the new Finance Junkies Clips channel. Eventually, the stream will be moving there. So please subscribe to that channel. And everyone
paste it into the chat one more time, because when you watch it live again, it'll be the last thing you see if someone does watch to the end. And actually, and put your Twitter in there. I'll put my Twitter in there. If you guys want to follow us, heckle us.
Please follow and heckle us on Twitter. That's great. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We appreciate you guys being here. Tomorrow, Thursday, is the last day of the current weekday work week for the Finance Junkies, which is crazy to say it's work because it doesn't feel like work at all.
You don't have a job.
Bro, it took work for me not to go into my tangent, okay? It really took a lot.
I'm so proud of you, bro. The way you summarize, like, the banks are a good place.
You know what, though, Chris? Do you ever watch the show after it's done?
I do all the time. I do see what you guys are saying. Yeah.
I try to do that weekly with my life anyway. Like, I sit back and I think about the conversations I had, how I could be better. But this, having a record, I'm like, this is what I was doing from like my time, 7 to 8 every day. I'm like, oh, I could have phrased that better. I could have like that thing you posted. That thing you posted about the Bears forged in the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, he's right. I gotta. That's just a great way of saying it, where it could have taken a half an hour. Like, it's.
You know how I became one of the best debaters in the country in high school? Not to brag. I listened to myself. I recorded. My dad got me an iPhone 6 senior year. I recorded every single debate, like hundreds of debates. As soon as the debate was over, before the judge decided, I would put in my earphones and I would listen to myself. And I like became obsessed with how I spoke, because like, do I like how I'm speaking? Because if I don't like how the judge is not going to vote for me, and that turned me into a better communicator. So, I mean, a tip for anyone who's trying to get better at communication is speak, even if it's not on a public platform, and just listen to yourself speak about yourself.
Absolutely.
And you will. It's like basketball. If you watch basketball players and you're trying to get into the NBA, you're playing high school hoops, you will try to emulate some of what they do and get better.
It's the mirror neuron effect.
So I came to the conclusion like yesterday, and I didn't realize this until like people really started talking about tangents and stuff. So before, I used to do lectures at my hospital with different like safety things and radiation stuff. And people would never have questions afterward. And I used to always think to myself, I'm like, man, I must have done such a great job. No one's got a single question. This is perfect. I am amazing at this. And after yesterday, I was like, I wonder, did I just put everyone to fucking sleep?
No, you hit them.
That's why they don't have
You
a
hit them
question.
with so many adjectives, nouns. You were the original pronoun warrior. Like,
You know.
he just hit them with all that stuff.
I was like, I never checked if they were asleep or not, because maybe that's what happened. I just used to like I was like, good job, Kris. No one's got a question. That means you covered everything. Now I realize maybe I just covered too much.
No, across they fear the 30-minute reply.
They fear the 30-minute. Here's the thing. You know, we give him shit for it, but like if you and I were to have a conversation like over a beer, it's totally fine because that's the natural flow of conversation. But it's very different when you've got 400 people watching you. You have to be mindful of the audience watching. You have to be mindful of the, like they say, like, know the room, right? Maybe not everyone's interested in this or whatever it is. So you get shit. I mean, or you could say that we give you shit, but it's only for that reason. If there was like 5 people watching this, then I'm like, you know. Yeah,
Donnie
give Kris
says,
some love in the chat. Give Kris some love in the chat.
No, I'm good.
The video skipped, and my wife thought she heard Mick call himself the best master. That one I am as well. No, I'm just kidding. All right, that was awesome. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday. Vitaly should be there tomorrow night, and we will discuss whatever's going on in the world of the markets. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Check out the Twitter. Check out the channel. See you guys tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
Bye.